The BlaBlaBlacksheep podcast, Series 1, Our Forefathers, Episode 8, Changing the Generational Impact of Absent Fathers on Relationships. Father absence doesn't just affect children. It affects marriages, it affects relationships, it affects entire families, communities, society. Children of father-absent homes are twice as likely to divorce in adulthood. This is according to the Journal of Family Issues. If you grew up without a father, it might be harder to trust. It might be harder to communicate, to manage your emotions, to express those emotions, or even to know what a healthy relationship looks like. What do you expect of a man? How should a man act? Where is one to get an example of what a father should be like if there's no father to teach? But here's the good news. We can change this. Research from the South African College of Applied Psychology shows that men who work on healing from father absence can form healthier, more stable relationships. So not all hope is lost. One of the reasons why people who grew up in father-absent homes are twice as likely to divorce is due in part to poor role models of how relationships function and resolving attachment issues from childhood. It stands to reason that if one is not shown about how to, for example, treat their wife or raise children, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with money pressures, how to deal with sickness, it is very difficult then to originate a good solution to that unless an example has been seen elsewhere, which is why community is so important if one has had an absent father in the home. And so if we are going to be healing or providing healing for the next generation, there are very specific steps that we can be taking towards that. One of those, very critically, is building healthy marriages. Now, healthy marriages is one of the things that I'm passionate about because within marriages, that provides a safe place in the most, if done right. So let me put that caveat in. Healthy marriages can create safe spaces for healing to happen for the father, for the mother, and of course raise children that are hopefully better than both of them. But in building healthy marriages, fathers who are present in their child's lives can model these healthy relationships. They can help their children with emotional regulation, helping their children to build stronger marriages themselves later on in life and have healthy relationships in friendships and within families. It all starts from healthy marriages. Fathers can also improve their own marriages by being emotionally present and learning from their past mistakes. Just because a mistake has been made, and we will make and do make mistakes, does not mean that we cannot learn from them and grow and be strengthened. But engaging in open communication and practicing vulnerability are key. Now, I know that a lot of people out there will think that vulnerability, we don't do that. A fairly famous person in South Africa that I have the privilege of knowing once said to me when I mentioned my ideas about a podcast like this or hosting men's event, he said to me, "No, I'm happy to share my story about the pain of my divorce, but as long as you don't expect me to cry, I don't do that thing." I found, however, that vulnerability is a superpower, one that very few people tap into. It's as if people are afraid to expose themselves, to show who they really are and to be known. But this is, I think, the key actually to communication, to connection, and the kind of relationships that we truly want lies on the other side of our ability to be vulnerable. That ability to be vulnerable depends very much on how secure we are in our internal persons. I see and have seen a one-to-one correlation with that. And as I said before, it starts with self-awareness. It starts with understanding who we are. What is the fabric of our being? What are we made of? What's the structure? What is the character? What is the foundation of everything that is who Ayanda and who you are? Let's look at the story of Desmond Tutu, our beloved emeritus, may he rest in peace, Archbishop, one of South Africa's most beloved figures who's helped South Africa to navigate through some very, very treacherous waters. Tutu grew up with a complicated relationship with his father, who struggled with alcoholism. This impacted how Tutu viewed relationships, but through reflection, through faith, and self-awareness, he worked to ensure that his own marriage was strong and rooted in love, in faith and communication. In short, he broke the cycle. Tutu's story shows us that even when we have inherited difficult patterns, difficult situations, difficult circumstances, we have the power to change the narrative. There are plenty of stories out there about men who've been able to do that, overcome the odds, build the kinds of relationships that they never saw emulated in their biological families or immediate families, able to build amazing businesses, able to do fantastic things and overcome the greatest of odds. And so if you want to be men like that, relationally speaking, in a healthy way, in a constructive way that builds good relationships, healthy relationships with our people in our immediate circle and our families, and especially for our kids, one of the things, of course, that we've got to be able to master is how to communicate openly. A lot of women I've heard who say that men don't talk, and there are reasons why sometimes we choose not to say things, but it does not take away from this idea that we need to be able to communicate openly. If you grew up without a father, you may find it hard to share your experience with your partner, but it is necessary to do so. It is necessary to share those stories about your father, how it impacted you, because it will help them to understand you better. It will help them to understand your patterns, your behaviors better, and possibly where they can support you in that process of healing. It starts with open communication, which is going to help to build understanding. And as I said before, if you're struggling to do this, find help. There are plenty of people out there across the country, across the world, who you can reach out to. I'm sure that there's one who is going to be able to facilitate and guide you through this process so that you can build the skill into your marriage. You need to learn what healthy love looks like. Not all love is healthy. Not all of what looks like love is love. We need to know what that is. Forget the movies. Forget the rap songs, the hip hop. Learn what true love is. Healthy love is, what it should look like. And choose to emulate that and chase after that. Seek out role models. I'm not talking about the people who've got 20 girlfriends out there, or who've got 6 baby mamas. I'm talking about healthy role models. The people who are building healthy families, respectful children, who are raising respectful children, who are loving one woman. There are books, there are podcasts like this, there are mentors. People who can show you what healthy relationship looks like. Focus on healing. Unresolved wounds from father absence can damage relationships. We are who we are. We bring things with us. We are one single human being wherever we go. We might change the face. We might change our behaviors depending on the circumstance. But when we lie in bed at the end of the day or look in the mirror in the morning, we are what we are. So make healing a priority so that you can show up fully for yourself, for your children, and for your spouse. In the next episode, we are going to close the series. We're going to focus on the future and look at fatherhood in Africa in general. We're going to ask ourselves questions like, what can we do to create a new legacy for generations to come? What can we do now to make the future better? The future that we are heading into and the future that we are wanting our kids to raise up in. How do we begin to lower those stats? That 60.8% or 61.8, whatever the stat is, it's far too high. How do we begin to make sure that within our lifetime, that figure drops radically? That those psychological issues are reduced, those mental health issues, those risks of falling out of school or falling into undesired behaviors, delinquent behaviors. What can you and I do? I'd love to hear your suggestions, what you've been doing, what has been working for you, what has been a challenge, what successes you've had. Share them with us, or share them out there as much as we can with those who are listening. And hopefully you are sharing and liking this podcast so that others can find it and be able to benefit from them as well. If you're joining us now, I really encourage you to go back from the start. This has been a journey from episode 1. Track the conversation through, listen to them. Look forward to seeing you in the last episode when we look at the future of fatherhood in Africa. And then we'll close season 1, and I look forward to seeing you then. Cheers.